I would give the coalition that is confronting Russia an A on intent and a B+ on effectiveness. When you use economic sanctions as a weapon in a confrontation, you want to make sure that you maximize the damage to the party you want to influence and minimize damage to yourself. So, for example, if you embargo Russian oil, you don't buy it from them, but that hurts you. If you instead tax Russian oil, you can still get their oil, but they don't get the money, or they get less of the money. It doesn't sound morally the same, but it's more effective. And if you tax Russian oil, you can use that money to fund support for Ukraine and so on. If you embargo Russian oil, then Russia will be forced to sell that oil more cheaply elsewhere, maybe in India. But then you don't capture the rents that you could redeploy for the purpose of persecuting the confrontation with Russia. The first thing about a sanctioned regime is that you want to have a maximum impact on the country you're trying to influence vis-a-vis the cost that it imposes on your economy and your people. So you want to do things that you are a major supplier of and where the importing country, in this case Russia, doesn't have too many options. So you want to focus on the ones where you really have market power. Number two, you want to coordinate. You don't want for the US to be sanctioning some products and not Europe, and Europe to be sanctioning other products and not the US, because that only changes where Russia buys its stuff. It doesn't really constrain them. So you want to create a big enough coalition and that you want all of them to coordinate on the same products. And number three, a lot of the sanctions have been put on capital goods. So, for example, they cannot buy new airplanes and stuff, but they can still use the airplanes that they have. So we emphasize the importance of intermediate inputs, because intermediate inputs are needed for today's production. If you don't have the raw materials, the intermediate inputs that are needed for a particular production line, you have to stop the production line. So we think that there are many intermediate inputs that should be targeted. We have a general approach in which we can rank 6,000 products in terms of some combination of how impactful you are as your market power is and how impactful they would be on Russia. Given that framework, we think that a lot of improvements could happen in terms of what things should be sanctioned and who should coordinate with whom to sanction. The Baltic countries were part of the Soviet Union until its collapse. They're now part of the European Union, but they still maintain a lot of economic ties to Russia. And as a consequence, the sanction regime imposes bigger costs on them. I think that the way forward is for them to accelerate their integration towards the European Union and to facilitate that integration process. Internally, given the politics of the European Union, they are most interested in Europe having a very tough position against Russia in Ukraine. Because they are borderline states. They have Russia as a neighbor. They are NATO members, and they are concerned that an expansionist Russia could endanger them first.